All right. Hello, everyone. This is another story of hope, and I already feel like I'm going to cry, so it'll probably be a tearjerker. We are here with Diana, and I'm just so happy for you, and for you, and honored that you're here with me and sharing with everyone in the community. I don't know why I'm starting to cry already, but this girl had a hell of a fucking journey, and she will share, we'll share all the nitty gritty details. But yeah, why don't you start, and I'll kind of just jump in and listen, that kind of thing.
Sure. Thanks, Amy. Hello, everyone. My name's Diana. I'm 45 years old and I just had my baby girl. I'm 5 weeks postpartum
Yeah.
and it's been a really long journey. Just to kind of go over my background, I met my husband later in life in my late 30s, and it's not like I can say, hey, let's have a baby tomorrow. So we had to get to know each other, get married, and by the time we were settled, I started to try to have a baby at age 40. With a combination, I did IUIs, I did IVF. Surprisingly, in 2020, I got pregnant naturally, which was a miracle.
You were
And
41 no, you were 40 still at the time, right?
I don't even remember 2020, so that's like no, like
4 years ago.
41, I think I
Yeah.
was,
Okay. Yeah.
which I eventually miscarried. Um, and I was obviously very devastated. The following year, I got pregnant again 3 times naturally, and I miscarried every time. So I was feeling just hopeless is not the word. I just defeated, deflated. I like wanted to give up. I was going through a lot of hardship. It was very traumatic, and um, it's still kind of hard to like think about because it's very painful. But anyways, the following year, back in 2021, I got a new job and I relocated to Seattle. I moved from Boston to Seattle, and at that point, at the end of that year, which was after my fourth loss, I went to another IVF clinic, just not really expecting it would work. This time, this clinic was it was like a smaller shop. That this doctor was the only one who was practicing at the clinic, so she was going to do my retrieval, she was going to do my transfer. She remembered, so I thought, okay, it's more intimate as opposed to that like whole factory sort of setting at Boston IVF. So um, luckily, I found the right doctor because she really was very thorough. And it was through like her insisting of like doing all these different checks that I found out I had endometriosis, which I never knew because I never had any sort of symptoms at all.
Did she do
Um,
the pelvic MRI? Is that what she
yeah,
did? Yeah, that's what I remember, because we
yeah,
found adeno and endo, right?
correct, correct. I was floored. I was shocked. Um, and I was like, okay, could this have contributed to my losses? And there's really no way to conclusively prove that. But I was like, because all the doctor said, it's your age. These were like probably aneuploid anyway, blah blah blah. So I said, all right. So the doctor had kind of said, okay, if we get to that point, we're gonna do downregulate with Lupron. But I was like, well, what about surgery? And she didn't like push it. But I've been following you for a while, Amy, and you had talked about Dr. Vidali and this and that and endo and how so many of your clients have that. So I was like, all right. So I just explored it, and I thought, okay, why not? Right? Let me just get the surgery. My insurance is covering
Yeah.
it, so I flew to New York and then I got the surgery. It turned out I had stage 2, which is not super extensive, but at least like I'm starting with a clean palate.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then about 2 months later, I did what's called NPLAF, which is like PRP, but like a little bit slightly different at this clinic called Gen 5 in San
Yeah, in
Diego.
San Diego, right.
Yep.
So he does the PRP, but he adds stuff to it. He adds other growth factors to it,
Yes.
basically.
So
Yeah.
I did PRP and MPLAF. And realizing, it was probably my chances, who knows, right? It's a risk. But I thought to myself, okay, I had kind of resigned myself to the fact that I'm going to try my best for the next cycle and then give it my all and then let it go, let it be. So I said, okay, let me just throw everything at it. So I did that. And then I also, that was like the most diligent I was with the egg quality diet.
Mhm.
Like, I
Excellent.
had been really
And were
like
you working with us at the time? I
trying.
think so, right? Because you were working with Sarah. Yeah, that's right. Because the end, here's the notes, 5/16/2022, Ultra PRP and NPLAF scheduled for 5/25, right? So that's, you did that in 2022, right? Okay.
Yeah. So I said, all right, let me just throw everything at it. Then I did egg quality diet as much as I could. And I was never 100% perfect. I'm just going to throw that out there. And I think
Yeah, and
kind
before
of,
we recorded, I said to her, I want to be really honest with everyone to show that, like, at 44, I mean, we'll get to that part of the story, but at 44, she made genetically normal embryos, and you were, you know, it was a hard journey, I will say that. And we met you where you were at, of like, let's do the best we can with the diet. You still ate really clean, but you weren't, always hitting all the macros and things like that. And you
yeah.
had your, you know, you had your days where we just did what we needed to do because we had to get by, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was diligent with supplements.
Yes.
I cut out gluten and dairy. Where I struggled was getting enough vegetables, and
Yeah.
I tried my
Yes.
best because um, I like vegetables, but it was like such large quantities. And so I did green juices to try to, get a
Yeah,
lot
we
in
did the
there.
powders. Yeah, we tried to
Yeah,
get it in there. Right.
stuff like that. So, and then also I will say like wine was also sort of my vice, and it helped me to like kind of cope. But I knew like in my head that it wasn't the best thing for me. So I tried to switch to organic. I just tried to do the best that I could in the moment, right? I was not perfect. And I think a lot of women think they have to be perfect, and
Yeah.
that's just not the
Exactly.
truth.
Exactly.
Um, so, and then also,
You're
I
good.
think,
Yeah. Go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, I was going to say like the emotional aspect of it, right? Like the spiritual aspect. Like it wasn't just that. Like I'm a pretty spiritual person. Um, and I meditated, I prayed, I tried to envision what it was like holding my baby. I pictured myself really big. I pictured myself at the hospital. Like I did all of that. But did I 100% believe? Like, no, of course not. I just thought,
Mhm.
okay, I'm just gonna keep
Yeah,
doing
you
what I
you
can.
were resilient and you kept going, and I think even like, when coaching with Sarah and you did our group
Mhm.
coaching, it was like you really showed up and you utilized all the resources. And I also, what I always appreciated, and I don't mean that other girls aren't like this, but just how honest you always were. You know what I mean? It was just like, this is the best I can do. Like, and it was just like, okay, then this is what we'll do. We'll figure this out.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but to go
appreciate that
back to,
you nor
oh,
Sarah ever said uh like you're not listening to me, you have to
yeah,
do it like this. Like you
never,
really tried to meet me where I was,
yeah.
and just say, you know what, like let's implement little things, right? Like that can be impactful like over time. So um that was really the best that I just couldn't be perfect. It was
No.
just too hard. And had you taken that stance with me, I would have been like, okay,
No,
I'm
you
done.
would have left us. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. And, I think that's the benefit of clinicians that have been doing it a long time. It's like there is no perfect. So tell us, so you do the NPLAF with Gen 5 and then you go in for a retrieval, right?
Yep.
That's what happened.
And then uh also, I think based on stuff that you were saying, like, right, like all my IVS that I had done, and I had done, let me think, 5 cycles at that point, none of which I made any blastocysts.
Yeah,
Okay.
she never got the testing,
Yeah.
not once. But
Not
yet
one.
she's getting pregnant naturally at home. I think that's a very like, think about that.
Mhm.
That's an interesting take.
Um, and so my doctor, this was my cyst cycle, and I was doing a duostim for the first time. So I said, okay. And again, she wanted me to kind of do like the maximum dose. But to be honest, like I I said, you know what? Nothing's yielded blastocysts anyway, so let me just take it upon myself and half the dose.
I remember us talking, and I said before we recorded, I was like, "Are we going to share about what we about that little thing when she halves the dose?" And I always, you guys know too, if you've been following me for a while, I'm always, especially women in their 40s, the high dose meds, and also the thing of just keeping doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results feels insane. And so Diana was always, you took advantage of office hours of the weekly Q&A and just like you knew. And so when she got her medication protocol, she just said, "Yeah, I'm going to cut everything in half." So it was like Menopur and Follistim, and you did half the dosing, and share with everyone what happened.
Yeah, so then that first part of Duostim, I got it regardless of having the dose. I mean, like we got, I don't remember the exact numbers.
I'll tell you
Good.
right
Okay.
now. So we got, um, sorry, I was here before. So previous IVF retrieval results too, which I think are helpful. Retrieved 6, 4 matured, 4 fertilized, all stopped growing at day 3. So that was every IVF, all 5 IVFs prior. That was basically it. 6, 4 fertilized, all stopped growing by day 3. And those cycles were estrogen patches, 225 Follistim organal, 225 Menopur, HGH, and a dual trigger. The duostim, what she wanted to do was Clomid and Menopur, and then Gonal and Menopur. That's what I have listed there. I don't know if
Mhm.
that's what we actually wound up doing, but and so then we do um duostim. We got 5 mature, 4, oh sorry, I got 5, 4 mature and fertilized to freeze, and we froze on day 2. Does that sound right?
Mm, well, no, we definitely froze on day 5. I got to blastocyst and then they froze.
Right. So this is July 18th, 2022. Um,
That was the part one. The
that
part
was
two.
part 1. So I have freeze on day 2, but
Mhm.
maybe that's wrong. Um, and you also during that time did the pregmune too. We should add that in. You did the pregmune
Oh yes,
testing during that
I
time.
did pregnant testing.
And you met with Dr. Beers. Like you did, we really pushed because it was like the endo and adeno were there. They were present on the pelvic MRI. um Everybody agreed with the suppression before transfer, right? But I think we wanted, you'd been through so much already, those losses, and we were working our, as I always say, we work our asses off for these embryos. Let's just let's check every box, right? So you did a meeting with Dr. Alan Beers out in California. You did the pregmune report. You'd already done the surgery with Vidali, so you kind of had both those guys on your team. um, and we had the pregmune results, which I could share some of the things that were found. So then I have duostim, got 5, 4 mature, 1 made it to blast part 2. So sorry, it didn't freeze at day 2. I think that was
Mhm.
what maybe the plan was, but what really happened was, so this is also, keep in mind, she took her meds from 225 Menopur and 225 Follistim to on her own doing 150 Gonal and 75 Menopur. And we got 5, 4 mature, 1 made it to blast. And then part 2, these are the notes I have, got 10 eggs, 8 mature, 5 fertilized, 3 made it to blast. And you can
Yes,
share
that sounds
what
right.
happened with
Because
those.
we ended up sending
3 to
5.
blast, and we got how many out of that 3 that came
We
back?
got 2 euploids, one boy, one girl, which I was shocked. You know, I like never in my wildest imagination did I think I would get one, like, or like to get 2 was just like, holy cow.
And
Um,
at this point, you're
and
43. You were 43?
no, I
You're
made those
44.
eggs the right when I turned 44.
That's what I
So
thought.
yeah,
Yeah, it was September 7th, 2022, and we talked, and your birthday is July 31st. That's right. So
yeah.
you had just turned 44.
I just turned 44. So it was just crazy. And then I think I also want to just add, like, in addition to the pregnant, which had some stuff come up, I had kind of like thought, okay, it's not going to work. So I actually bought donor eggs and I kind of put them to the side as well.
Bought donor eggs. You also explored surrogacy, right? You had a lot of pots boiling, I would say.
Mhm. Yes. So I really came from it from all different angles. But anyways, with these 2 euploids, I was like, and then some of the stuff that came up in the pregmune, I was really doubting myself that I could carry this to term. So I explored surrogacy very in depth, which I'm not sure if a lot of women know how expensive it is. Yeah, it was so expensive, and like my husband kind of just drew a line. We're not gonna, take a home equity loan like to do this. Like we're going to try it with you. So we ultimately made that decision. And I said, okay, having so much like doubt. Um, and then uh, the protocol, the pregnant protocol. So I actually did a whole bunch of stuff. I did prednisone, I did IVIG, I did,
It was,
gosh,
yours was saying
Lovenox,
IVIG, but Pregmune had said Neupogen over
uh-huh,
IVIG. And I wrote in all caps, I think she should do both. And I
which
can't
I
remember.
did.
We did do both, right?
I did do.
And also I want to touch upon too, if I'm remembering correctly, and I'm seeing it here in the notes too, a lot of fear and resistance around doing the 2 months of the Depo Lupron. You remember
Oh
that?
yes. The
And
double Lupron,
like
I
talk
was like
about that. Yeah.
terrified.
Yeah.
Um, because to switch your body off like into a menopausal state, like, just the side effects that I had heard about was I was deathly afraid. Um, but ultimately I said, you know what? I have to do it, right? I'm going to try. And then also what helped me make that decision was my doctor, my RE. She was like, okay, these are very precious embryos. We're going to do hysteroscopy. Um, and she was the first one who ever said, let's do a hysteroscopy. Other doctors are like, let's just do a histogram or whatever,
Yeah. Sana.
sonohystogram,
Yeah.
and call it a day.
Yeah.
It was very eye-opening because I was awake and she put the camera in and I just saw inflammation. It was like dark red, purples. She's like, I think I can see some adeno in there, just it was a lot, it was just inflamed. And I just remember feeling so deflated, like,
Mhm.
okay, how is this ever gonna work? So that like kind of made my decision, okay, I'm just gonna do it, right? Do the down regulation.
And how
So
were the
I
side effects for
actually,
you? Talk about
yeah,
that.
it was awful. Like I'm not gonna lie, it was awful. I didn't have hot flashes surprisingly, but I was in so much pain, like joint pain, back pain. I was tired, like I was losing hair, my skin was dry, like all of that stuff that you kind of hear about, minus the hot flashes, like I was experiencing, and I was like so miserable. The first month wasn't bad, but the second month it got bad. And then
We had you
I
on
told my
Chinese herbs
doctor,
too, right? Didn't we?
pardon?
We had you on Chinese herbs during it too, I feel like.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did. I was
Yeah.
taking it all. And I told my doctor, like, I can't do a third month, like, even though it was supposed to be 3 months. So she actually changed, and I was doing Lupron plus letrozole, which is, it just further um, down regulates you. So she switched me on to like a birth control pill for that third month that had very, very minimal estrogen, and then kept me on the letrozole so that I wouldn't, activate anything. And then I did that for like another month, and that really helped because I just needed a little something to kind of help me. So I did that, and then I did a second hysteroscopy because we wanted to see the before and after. And I can tell you, like, it was night and day. That second hysteroscopy, it was like very beautiful, pale pink. And she was like, "This looks lovely. Like, if I was an embryo, I'd want to be right here." Like, it was it was
That.
crazy. So if you have the option to do a hysteroscopy to really just see what's in there, because you can go through all this effort, but if you don't have the right environment, like you're shit
Yeah.
out of luck, right? So
No, I
um
think too, as like I always say, like I'm an alternative medicine practitioner, and I will say the hysteroscopy is my favorite test, and it's the one I probably most often recommend, right? And also to then test the uterine lining, make sure there's no infections, but
mhm,
also even the MRI, and you know this through working with Vidali, but he'll say like not everybody knows how to read the MRI. So some people will miss the adeno, they can even miss endo on the MRI. Not every doctor even does the MRI, that's the other thing, um but it's, I think the hysteroscopy too, to get the look of the internal environment is just so important to know exactly what, yeah, what's going on in there. And I think, and also obviously for you too, it really turned the tides. And I remember thinking too, um, and I think I even said it to you at one point of like, you work so hard for these embryos, you have to do the suppression. And it was like you were scared, and rightly so. It's not a super pleasant experience. But I do think it's a big game changer.
yeah, no, I'm so glad. I wasn't gonna risk it. I had two precious embryos. It sucked, but it's temporary, and just keep your eye on the goal and just say, this is the goal. I'm gonna do it and just take it day by day. That's all I did, was take it day by day. And just
Mhm.
did the best that I could every day. And then yeah, I got through that. And then there was like my transfer was then scheduled, but because my doctor was sort of using a different clinic as like a third party, she was like she was very limited with her transfer dates. So I was scheduled like way out, and like there was this period where I was like, I felt like, oh, I'm just waiting and waiting, like I want to get this done. But I was like, you know what, how am I going to fill this time? So that's when I sort of really worked on like the mental aspect of it. I went on a retreat, a Joe Dispenza
Joe
retreat.
Dispenza Retreat. I
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I said, let me do that. And then also, I just want to disclose, like, I, there was a one night where my husband and we did psilocybin together. And it was like the first time that I had done it and since I was like a young girl in my 20s. So, um, that night, it was so helpful for me. And that's because it helped me to really, the whole experience, what I realized is like, oh my God, I am so lucky. I have a wonderful husband. I have two dogs. I have my health. I have like my home. Like I felt so like grateful and lucky. And like I just remember thinking, you know what, if this doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Like it doesn't diminish what I have, which is a pretty spectacular life. And like it really it really changed my whole perspective from that point on. And then in addition to that, I think because I was like making peace with that, and I went from a daily drinker of wine, which I switched to organic to kind of like in my head say it's a
Meet
little
me
bit
halfway. Yeah.
better. And then I, something just felt like I didn't need it anymore. So like after that night, I stopped drinking. I was like, you know what? Like I don't feel that need to like escape or to help me cope. It was just okay. So I stopped drinking. So like that kind of for like a
That
month,
was all in like no, that was
probably
when was
like
the Joe Dispenza
Mayish.
retreat? It was like we
Oh, the
talked.
retreat was like a couple of weeks before. And
Yeah, we talked in March, and I you had just come back from the retreat. Oh no, that's right. The transfer gets pushed back because the transfer was originally April 20th.
yeah, and then
You
it
were
got
doing the Joe Dispenza retreat. That's right. So it came after March, right?
cool. So my transfer was scheduled for June and I had all this time to kill. So I
Yeah.
was like, you know what, I'm gonna go on this retreat. And I have to tell you like a funny story. When I went there, it was just crazy because it's something called the advanced follow-up because I had done retreat with him before. The very first day, I sat next to a woman and we were just, kind of getting to know each other. And we were talking, and she was kind of like, "Why are you here? Like, what's your main reason?" And I had kind of mentioned, "Oh, so I have this transfer coming up. I had gone through all these losses." It turned out the woman was from like also Seattle, Washington, which is where I live. Okay, she was also a older mother who went through the same experience of trying to have babies. She went to like the clinic where I had my frozen eggs. Um, and like even for her, she was like in her 40s. She didn't like do everything that I did. Like she just went in and she had like one embryo that like made it um and she had her miracle baby. So it's
No.
like out of everyone I could have sat next to and like talked to, like the very first person that I saw, I was like, okay, is this a
There are
sign
no
from the
coincidences.
universe?
There are no
Like it was
coincidences.
crazy. And then in addition to that, like Joe Dispenza does these healings, like these group healings for people that you have to apply to. And, I didn't get picked. And then on the second day, um, they pulled a couple people, additional people to get healings. And I was one of them. And I was like, oh my God. Like, then so I was able to get like group healings, which is really like fantastic. And I remember during those group healings, like afterwards, one woman was just like, you know, kind of, she's like, I feel like a lot of energy in my uterus, and she told me that and I was like bawling. I was like, oh my God. So anyways, putting
You
that
did
all
all the things.
together, like
Yeah.
it's just I look back and I'm like, holy cow, like what a journey it's been. It really has been a journey. And for everything to align, because with my immune stuff, with my endo, my adeno, like my age, like, just everything had to line up for me to get these two embryos, like, and that's part one. And then to put it in and then it be successful and then carry it to term was a whole nother
Whole
journey.
other thing, because you had some bleeding, you had some,
I had a
some
lot of
shifts
stuff
in
come
the
up. Yeah.
pregnancy too. It was, um, yeah, let's see. Final lining check, I was over 8 millimeters. The immune protocol was prednisone, 10 milligrams, Lovenox, Neupogen, metformin. You were on it for several weeks. Baby aspirin, IVIG. And then you were doing fish oil, probiotic, prenatal, calcium, magnesium, melatonin, 1 milligram. And you had said to me, the prednisone scares me the most. Do you find that it makes or breaks a successful pregnancy, even with the Neupogen IVIG? And I said, I do find it making or breaking cycles, and I don't typically see negative side effects. Weaning off it at 20 weeks isn't always awesome and usually comes with headaches, but I do see pros outweighing the cons. That's what
Mhm.
I had said to you. And that was June 6th, right? And so then July 19th, we'd had a call and it still pregnant. So you were 8 weeks, 3 days. You had
Mhm.
had two big bleeds with a subchorionic hematoma. And then you did the alpha lipoic acid at 600 milligrams, right? And didn't that help?
I did a little bit, but then I stopped. I was like, you know what? Let me just stick with like what.
Oh, right. Because once you started taking it, your thyroid tanked. That's right. I remember this because alpha lipoic can inhibit thyroid function.
Yeah.
I remember that. And then Dr. Thornton said, keep the Lovenox, stop the baby aspirin. You were put on bed rest and pelvic rest. 8 weeks, 3 days, went to the OB for the first time. Baby was measuring ahead. The heart rate was 177. Weekly ultrasounds make me so happy and peaceful. And then you were doing the pregnancy monitoring with Vidali and Thornton, and they upped the prednisone to 15, and they
Mhm.
saw the APA was still present, so you were on the Lovenox, and then progesterone was doing great, right?
Mhm.
And then let's see, then we talked again, 1025, the SCH, the subchorionic in the first trimester, that happened again around week 19, anatomy scan. There was placenta previa, the cervix was short. So you had some scares for certain.
Yeah.
And the previa moved, the cord looked longer, cervix got longer. And then when we talked, you were 22 weeks and 3 days. And baby was big, 82nd percentile, and you were trying to you were getting your protein and you had your collagen peptides, 2 eggs, you were trying dairy, beef, and you were still on the IVIG, the Lovenox, baby aspirin, metformin. And you were lucky too, in the sense you had the insurance coverage for the IVIG, because that is a pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Um, and then, yeah, so then what was it, 37 weeks you got induced? Is that what?
Yes. Yes. So the reason I got induced at 37 was because I was starting to show signs of preeclampsia, which luckily never happened, but I was having high blood pressure and stuff like that. So the doctors were monitoring me very, very closely. Um, and then towards the end, I was getting like twice a week NSTs. So it was like, the doctors were all over it. But, I'll be honest, like even after first trimester, like I was so panicked. I was kind of like, okay, expecting the worst. Even like the day that like they brought me into the hospital and induced me, I was like still thinking, okay, I'm gonna have a stillbirth. And I just kept it's really hard to
So much
shake off.
trauma.
Yeah.
It's so much trauma.
It's really hard to shake off. And then went in to get induced and then it didn't work, unfortunately.
The induction.
My cervix wasn't opening, and so the doctor was like, "Okay, we can keep trying, but I would suggest a C-section." So I said, "All right, let's get this baby out," because at that point they had broken my water, and I had to act. So we did a C-section, and then I was so scared, like like just so scared. My blood pressure during the C-section went up to like 175. It was real, like I was so scared. But then once like the baby was out and I heard the baby cry, and then they put the baby on my chest for skin to skin, and I lost it, and I was like all that emotion that was like building up over years, like it just came out. It was pretty amazing, and like I can never forget that feeling. And I was finally holding my precious girl, and I was like, oh my God, like I can't believe she's
Yeah.
finally here. Um, and now she's 5 weeks, and she's a big girl, and I'm loving motherhood so much. And just feeding her every 3 hours in the middle of the night when I'm holding her, and like I start thinking like, wow, like it really, just looking at everything that brought me here, and I'm like, holy cow, like I was really just go go go. And then this time has given me an opportunity to process everything a little bit more. And I still cry just because I'm still sort of mourning my losses and all of that stuff. And thinking about like all the other women like who, and I totally get it. It's so hard. It is so hard. And I've met some people like through the group that I keep in contact with. And I really try to, I'm part of many Facebook groups, and like, try to inspire others, right? And like try to tell everybody sort of my story, and like believe me when I say like I totally get it. But like the chances, not just on my age, but because I had endo, I had adeno, I had immune issues, I had lots of complications to the pregnancy, and yet here I am on the other side. And it's like truly, like anything is possible. Like it really, really is, right? And the thing is, I think it was like that dual of trying, like working my ass off to get to this point, but also just making peace, like, and just saying, you know what, like if I keep only looking at me not having a baby, I'm gonna miss, the next however many years, like. And I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do that. Like I'm incredibly lucky. Um, and I think really that letting go is so important. It really is. It's because if you constantly have that energy of like, I don't have a baby, I don't have a baby, like it's not good for you. Number one. um I think it's not really that energy that you want to bring a baby into. Number two, right? Like, and then also it's just, if you have a partner who's like trying to help, and you don't want to neglect your partner and like um make them feel like they're not important or they're not enough. Like, so I, yeah, but like in the end, I was like, I'm going to be a mother, and that's sort of my vision. And whether it's through my donor eggs or whether it's my
Surrogacy
biological
and yeah,
children, like
exactly.
whatever, I was like, you know what, I'm going to be a mother, and I'm going to feel that love no matter what. And so like I kind of let that sort of be my end state sort of vision. But luckily, like, thank the universe, thank God, like I was able to come out
Get
of this.
get and stay. Get and stay pregnant with your biological
Yeah.
child. And truly like against the odds, honestly, starting the journey at 40, which I think a lot of women do and can totally relate. I was one of them too. Um, and then to I just think too of like to have the IVFs that you had in the beginning where everything just stopped growing at day 3 and zero success. It's like then automatically, those doctors are just pushing you right to donor. You're done. It's no good. But to see that you got older, you're 3 years older than that process, and here you are making healthies. And I mean, I think you did a lot of work in those 3 years too. That we know optimized egg quality. I would think, but I also do think it's a big takeaway is looking at that medication piece and finding the right doctor. And then, it's like two separate things. Like you said, it's like focusing on the quality and getting the embryos and then focusing on the environment, which is such a critical piece because you
Mhm.
worked your tail off for those babies.
Mhm.
And the emotional piece, right? The emotional inflammation we know plays a big role, processing the grief and all the work you did, the Joe work. And I mean, it's incredible. You're resilient and she's lucky to have you as a mama.
Oh, I want to thank you and Sarah. Like Sarah's terrific. Um,
Amazing.
yeah,
She's
she's
amazing.
wonderful. She's so on it. She's so smart. She's so funny. Like she's just really terrific. And you, and coming up with your program, like, and really pushing women to believe that it is possible, right? Like, um, and it's, like we said, like there is no perfection, right? You show up each day and you do the best with where you are, and just that's all you can do. And like if you can just do that and then say like I have peace with just trying my best, and then just move forward, right? Like just keep going, move forward, and cry when you need to cry. I mean, like
Mm.
of course, like I've broken down so many times, just saying it's just not going to happen, like and this and that, and um, but also don't miss life, right? Like don't miss on the good things that are in your life. Like you still have to go on, like, and you still have to appreciate like what you have and do the best that you can, and appreciate the support and the love and all of that, because if all you obsess about is I don't have this, like you really are going to miss a lot, and I didn't want to do that. So um
No, you didn't. I mean, I think you really came at it from all the angles. And I agree. It's like, that's a big, Joe Dispenza thing, or I think anybody in that world of like the lack mentality just breeds more lack. It's like really getting into that abundance mentality. And I think too for you, and I see this also be really helpful is starting to look at all the possibilities. Okay, like option A is obviously the dream. Like I want my own biological child and I would like to carry it to term. But then there's option B and there's option C. And understanding, I mean, there's a ton of resources that go into all those options, of course. But I think it's the like, it's not if, it's when. And I don't really know, I think Deepak says that there's a million ways between point A and point B. Your goal is to just focus on the getting to point B. You're going to get there and let the ways kind of fall into place, and I think about that even still, we were pretty close to moving forward with a surrogate. And then all of a sudden life happened, the universe got involved and Diana's carrying the baby. It was just like, and I remember, uh, there was a lot of stress in those moments, but I remember ultimately being like, this was how it was meant to be. This was how it was meant to be. She was meant to do this. And I loved that for you. And
Yeah, and I'm so glad it, like the whole surrogate thing blew up, because quite honestly, like the experience of carrying your baby and just as scary as it was, and believe me, like I was bracing myself for the worst the whole pregnancy. um it was just it was beautiful to see her on ultrasound, seeing her grow, seeing her heartbeat, feeling her kicking, like feeling her hiccup
yeah.
like all of that stuff, like having the big belly. Like I mean, third trimester was really hard, but like that experience was, it really was so beautiful. And to be the one to connect it to my baby and then have the baby come out and like just like on me, it was so profound. And but it's possible. I mean, like it really is. Like I had all the odds stacked against me, and somehow, and there is a spiritual aspect, where I believe, it was meant to be, and the universe gave me this incredible gift, in spite of all the odds. And I just want to encourage like all of your clients to believe it's possible, right? And try your best, like every day, but like don't be so hard on yourself if you can't be perfect. There really is no perfection, and I was not perfect by any means. Um, but I just said I'm just going to try the best that I can, and I'm going to that's all I can do, and like I will have peace with that, and that's what happened.
Mm. I'm so happy for you. And thank you. I mean, I think that's why I do these, is like you guys get to share with everyone, because you get it, you know it. Um, and you're on the other side. And you still have some embryos on ice, so we'll see. We do it
Yeah,
again.
yeah. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, no, there's no pressure there, of course, but that's also a conundrum in and of itself, especially
It
in,
is with
where
with the
like, oh
current
my
state
God,
of
I worked my
affairs.
ass off for all these years and now, you know, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to process. I think it's so big. And like you said before we started recording, and you touched on it too, of just like these last 5 weeks, it's like sitting there with her. There's a lot of grieving that's going on for you too. You know, you're in this joyful place, like you finally made to their side, and now you get the opportunity to like, I don't think you ever get over it, but I think you get the opportunity to let more of it go.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, my love. I'm so honored and I'm so grateful. And yeah, I always saw this, I always saw us doing this. That was my job, you know, to hold that space of like, one day we are going to tell the world this story and I cannot wait. Even when you made the embryos, you know, I definitely bragged about that as much as I possibly could. So she did it, you know, and I tell people all the time, you know, I mean, you guys have to do you. And of course, we're not encouraging to go against medical advice, but you know, what Diana did with her meds, I thought was brilliant and I was fully supportive and I think you did eventually tell the doctor, right? Didn't you?
No, I didn't. I was afraid of her yelling at me.
I thought we were like, maybe we'll tell her. But I think it's, you know, insightful for them to learn and know too. I think it's more and more, it's kind of getting more in the research. And even Dr. Luke did a story on it the other day of just like
Mhm.
high dose meds is just not working. Like you still had a pretty good reserve actually, you know,
It's
for your
crazy
age.
because my AIMEE'S like at its lowest point was like 0.38,
Yeah.
which is like,
Hmm. Yeah. It's been a
so
while.
even that fluctuates. So I definitely just encourage women like, the doctors who say it's not possible, like F them. Like you have no idea,
Exactly.
really. So it's just advocate for yourself, which you've talked about a lot. Like you really have to advocate for yourself to say, I
Yeah.
want this test, I want this done, I want this done. Be a pain in the ass. Like don't be
That's
shy.
squeaky wheel, squeaky wheel. Yeah. Yeah.
And also like don't let other doctors take away your dream and tell you you're too old and you can't do this and you can't do that. Like F you. Like perhaps it won't work out, but like you don't know that. Like you're not God, really. So um, just
You never want to
in mind.
regret, right? You never want to look back and be like, I didn't push, I didn't advocate. You know, I think that's so important, like in the part of making peace of like, okay, I have done everything I could. And I think you need, I don't know, to be able to move on in your life, regardless of the outcomes, you need to be able to look back and say
Yeah.
that.
And find the right doctor. If
Oh my God,
you
yeah.
have a doctor who's trying to like make you small, like move on,
Mhm.
right? And just someone who's open-minded. It doesn't mean they have to believe it's gonna happen and they're
Yeah.
gonna tell you all these like this give you false hope, but like just someone who's like willing to work with you and just truly try your best.
Mhm.
So
Okay. Thank you so much, Martin. Okay, we will let you get back to newborn motherhood and maybe sneak a nap in if you can.
yep.
Um, yeah, keep me posted on everything too.
Okay.
And thank you so much. And yeah, we'll be sharing this really soon, so I can't wait for everyone to hear the story. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
So
Bye
welcome.
everyone. Bye.